My hands are shaking as I watch my sister Celeste slip the wedding ring onto Nathan's finger. My wedding ring. The one I picked out 6 months ago when I thought he was going to marry me. The hotel chapel smells like cheap roses and lies. I'm hiding behind a marble pillar, my heart hammering so loud I'm sure they can hear it echoing off these walls. Nathan's voice is steady as he says his vows, the same words he whispered to me in bed just last week. I promise to love you forever, Celeste. The sound of my own name being replaced burns through my chest like acid. My vision blurs, but I can't look away. Can't breathe. Can't think past the screaming in my head that this isn't real, this can't be happening. Celeste looks radiant in the white dress she borrowed from my closet. The one I was saving for my own wedding next month. Her laugh, that sweet, innocent laugh I've protected my whole life, fills the chapel as Nathan kisses her. But it's the papers scattered on the witness table that make my knees buckle. Legal documents with my signature. My inheritance paperwork. Bank statements showing transfers I never authorized. They're not just stealing my fiancé. They're stealing my entire future. I press my back against the cold marble, my engagement ring cutting into my palm as I clench my fists. 28 years of loving them. Of trusting them. Of giving them everything. The chapel doors slam shut behind them as they leave for their honeymoon. Paid for with my money. I stand there in the silence, tasting blood from where I bit my tongue to keep from screaming. And that's when something inside me crystallizes into something sharp and patient and deadly. They think I don't know. They think I'm still the naive big sister who would forgive anything. But they have no idea what they just unleashed. 6 months earlier, I thought I was living the perfect life. Every morning, I'd wake up in my penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that cost more than most people's cars. Nathan would already be up, making coffee in that methodical way of his, 2 sugars for me, black for him. The smell of fresh espresso and his cologne created this bubble of contentment that felt unbreakable. "Good morning, beautiful," he'd whisper, kissing my forehead as I stumbled toward the kitchen in my silk pajamas. These small rituals felt like promises. Like we were building something that would last forever. I'd inherited my father's investment firm when he died 3 years ago, and every day felt like I was honoring his memory. Walking into those mahogany-paneled offices, seeing Blackwood and Associates etched in gold letters, knowing that in 2 years I'd inherit the family estate and everything would be complete. Nathan worked as our head of client relations, and we made such a good team. Professional during business hours, but I'd catch him looking at me during meetings with this smile that made my stomach flutter like I was still 17. "You're staring," I'd whisper during board meetings. "Can't help it. You're magnificent when you're being brilliant." The ring he gave me was my grandmother's, a vintage Tiffany diamond that caught light like captured stars. I'd twist it around my finger during stressful calls, remembering his proposal on the roof of our building, the city lights spreading out below us like possibilities. But the thing that made me happiest was Celeste. My baby sister, only 25 but already a successful lawyer. She'd moved into the same building 6 months after Nathan and I got engaged, and suddenly our little family felt complete. "I want to be close to my favorite people," she'd said, hugging me tight when I helped her move in. "You and Nathan are all I have now." Our parents died in a car accident when she was 21. I'd raised her through college, through law school, through her first heartbreak. She was the only family I had left, and protecting her had become second nature. We'd have dinner together twice a week, sometimes all 3 of us, sometimes just the girls. She'd curl up on my couch like she was still a kid, stealing bites of whatever dessert I'd ordered, telling me about her cases. "I don't know how you do it, Iris," she'd say, her green eyes, so much like our mother's, full of admiration. "Running the company, managing the estate planning, taking care of everyone. You're like Wonder Woman." I lived for those moments. The 3 of us felt like this unshakable unit against the world. Nathan and I had been planning our wedding for 8 months. June 15th at the family estate in the Hamptons. Celeste was going to be my maid of honor, and she threw herself into the planning with infectious enthusiasm. "This dress is perfect on you," she'd say during fittings, adjusting my veil with such careful attention. "Nathan's going to cry when he sees you walking down the aisle." But sometimes, late at night when Nathan was asleep beside me, I'd lie awake feeling this strange hollowness I couldn't name. Like I was performing happiness instead of living it. My parents were gone. I had no aunts or uncles, no cousins. My world had shrunk to just Nathan and Celeste. What if something happened to them? What if I lost them too? I'd push those thoughts away, telling myself I was being paranoid. Some people get everything they want, and I was one of the lucky ones. I had love, family, financial security, a thriving business, and in 18 months, I'd inherit $47 million and the estate where I'd grown up. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly as it should be. I should have known that perfect things are usually too fragile to last. 6 months earlier, I thought I was living the perfect life. Every morning, I'd wake up in my penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that cost more than most people's cars. Nathan would already be up, making coffee in that methodical way of his, 2 sugars for me, black for him. The smell of fresh espresso and his cologne created this bubble of contentment that felt unbreakable. "Good morning, beautiful," he'd whisper, kissing my forehead as I stumbled toward the kitchen in my silk pajamas. These small rituals felt like promises. Like we were building something that would last forever. I'd inherited my father's investment firm when he died 3 years ago, and every day felt like I was honoring his memory. Walking into those mahogany-paneled offices, seeing Blackwood and Associates etched in gold letters, knowing that in 2 years I'd inherit the family estate and everything would be complete. Nathan worked as our head of client relations, and we made such a good team. Professional during business hours, but I'd catch him looking at me during meetings with this smile that made my stomach flutter like I was still 17. "You're staring," I'd whisper during board meetings. "Can't help it. You're magnificent when you're being brilliant." The ring he gave me was my grandmother's, a vintage Tiffany diamond that caught light like captured stars. I'd twist it around my finger during stressful calls, remembering his proposal on the roof of our building, the city lights spreading out below us like possibilities. But the thing that made me happiest was Celeste. My baby sister, only 25 but already a successful lawyer. She'd moved into the same building 6 months after Nathan and I got engaged, and suddenly our little family felt complete. "I want to be close to my favorite people," she'd said, hugging me tight when I helped her move in. "You and Nathan are all I have now." Our parents died in a car accident when she was 21. I'd raised her through college, through law school, through her first heartbreak. She was the only family I had left, and protecting her had become second nature. We'd have dinner together twice a week, sometimes all 3 of us, sometimes just the girls. She'd curl up on my couch like she was still a kid, stealing bites of whatever dessert I'd ordered, telling me about her cases. "I don't know how you do it, Iris," she'd say, her green eyes, so much like our mother's, full of admiration. "Running the company, managing the estate planning, taking care of everyone. You're like Wonder Woman." I lived for those moments. The 3 of us felt like this unshakable unit against the world. Nathan and I had been planning our wedding for 8 months. June 15th at the family estate in the Hamptons. Celeste was going to be my maid of honor, and she threw herself into the planning with infectious enthusiasm. "This dress is perfect on you," she'd say during fittings, adjusting my veil with such careful attention. "Nathan's going to cry when he sees you walking down the aisle." But sometimes, late at night when Nathan was asleep beside me, I'd lie awake feeling this strange hollowness I couldn't name. Like I was performing happiness instead of living it. My parents were gone. I had no aunts or uncles, no cousins. My world had shrunk to just Nathan and Celeste. What if something happened to them? What if I lost them too? I'd push those thoughts away, telling myself I was being paranoid. Some people get everything they want, and I was one of the lucky ones. I had love, family, financial security, a thriving business, and in 18 months, I'd inherit $47 million and the estate where I'd grown up. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly as it should be. I should have known that perfect things are usually too fragile to last. The key turned in the lock with that familiar click that usually meant home, safety, love. I'd cut my business trip to Miami short because I missed Nathan. Because I wanted to surprise him with takeout from our favorite Italian place and maybe convince him to take a long weekend in the Hamptons. I could hear voices from the bedroom, Nathan's deep laugh mixing with something lighter, more musical. For a split second, my heart lifted. Maybe Celeste had come over to keep him company while I was away. But then I heard the sound that stopped my blood cold. A soft, intimate moan that definitely wasn't conversation. My hands went numb. The bags of food hit the marble floor with a wet splat that echoed through the foyer. Time moved like thick honey as I forced my legs to carry me down the hallway toward our bedroom. The door was cracked open just enough. Just enough to see my entire world imploding. Nathan was on top of my sister. In my bed. On my Egyptian cotton sheets that still smelled like my perfume from 3 days ago. But it wasn't just sex. It was the way he touched her hair, the same gentle way he touched mine. The way she arched into him like she belonged there. Like this wasn't the first time. I love you, he whispered against her neck, and those 3 words hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. My vision tunneled. This couldn't be real. This had to be some nightmare, some horrible mistake my exhausted mind was playing on me. Then I saw what was scattered across my antique dresser. Papers. Legal documents. Bank statements I'd never seen before. My inheritance paperwork. Trust fund information. Financial records that should have been locked in my office safe. With shaking legs, I crept closer. Close enough to read the marriage certificate lying on top of the pile. Nathan Rivers and Celeste Blackwood. Married 6 months ago. 6 months ago. While he was engaged to me. While she was helping me plan my wedding. While I was buying her Christmas presents and lending her my car and covering her rent when she claimed her law firm was late with paychecks. The numbers on the bank statements swam before my eyes. Transfers. Withdrawals. Money moving from accounts I didn't even know existed. My money. My inheritance money that wasn't supposed to be accessible until my 30th birthday. Except somehow, it was being accessed. By someone with my social security number, my signatures, my personal information. Information only Celeste had, because I'd trusted her with everything. The trust revision should go through next week, Celeste was saying now, her voice lazy with satisfaction. Then we just have to wait for the estate transfer. Are you sure she won't figure it out before then? Nathan, baby, you know my sister. She trusts everyone. She still thinks we're planning her dream wedding. Celeste laughed, and the sound was like glass breaking in my chest. Besides, even if she did find out, what could she do? We're already married. The money's already in motion. I backed away from the door on legs that felt like water. Each step felt like drowning. My throat burned with silent screams I couldn't release. 28 years of loving them. Of putting Celeste through school. Of building a life with Nathan. Of believing that family and love meant something real and unbreakable. They'd been planning this. 4 months. Maybe years. Using my love, my trust, my need to take care of everyone, as a weapon against me. I made it to the kitchen before my knees gave out. I gripped the granite counter until my knuckles went white, trying to process the magnitude of what I'd just discovered. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd systematically destroyed me, stolen my future, and wrapped it all in kisses and family dinners and wedding planning. But as I stood there, something shifted inside me. The heartbreak began to crystallize into something much more dangerous. I didn't go home that night. Or the next. or the week after that. Instead, I checked into the plaza under my mother's maiden name, telling myself I just needed space to think. But thinking was the last thing I could do. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Nathan's hands in Celeste's hair. Heard her laugh as she talked about stealing my life like it was some clever game. The hotel room became my prison. Four walls and a view of Central Park where normal people walked their dogs and lived their uncomplicated lives. I ordered room service I couldn't eat, took showers that never made me feel clean, and stared at my phone screen for hours without reading a single message. Nathan texted constantly. "Where are you? I'm worried sick. Iris, please call me back. Your sister is asking about you." Your sister. Like Celeste wasn't the one sleeping in my bed, wearing my future like a borrowed dress. I called in sick to work. Food poisoning, I told my assistant. Severe food poisoning that might last a while. The lie came so easily I scared myself. When had I learned to lie like that? Days blended together in a haze of unused tissues and unworn clothes. I'd put on makeup every morning out of habit, then wash it off because what was the point? No one was coming to see me. No one even knew where I was. The worst part was how normal everything looked from my window. The city kept spinning. People kept falling in love, getting married, trusting each other. Like my entire world hadn't just been revealed as an elaborate lie. I tried calling my lawyer about the inheritance paperwork, but my voice cracked on the first sentence. How do you explain that your own sister forged your signature? That your fiancé helped her steal your future? The words felt too big for my throat. Instead, I hung up and ordered another bottle of wine I wouldn't drink. On day 8, Celeste showed up at my office. My assistant called to tell me, and I could hear concern in her voice. She says it's a family emergency, Miss Blackwood. Should I tell her I'm still sick? I whispered, my voice hoarse from disuse. Tell her I'll call when I'm feeling better. But I could picture her there, probably wearing that worried sister expression she'd perfected over the years. Playing the part of the concerned family member while she and Nathan divided up my life between them. The isolation was eating me alive, but I couldn't face anyone. Couldn't pretend everything was fine when my entire identity felt like it was dissolving. Who was I if not Nathan's fiancé? If not Celeste's protective big sister? If not the responsible one who took care of everyone? I was nobody. A woman whose own family had found her so easy to betray that they'd done it for sport. But on day 10, something shifted. I woke up at 3 a.m. from a nightmare where I was signing papers I couldn't read, and instead of crying, I felt something sharp and cold settle in my chest. Anger. Pure, crystalline anger that cut through the fog of self-pity like a blade. They thought I was weak. Thought I was so pathetic that I'd never fight back. Thought they could steal everything I'd worked for and I'd just, what? Disappear? Accept it? I got out of bed and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My eyes were puffy, my hair was a mess, but underneath the wreckage, I was still me. Still the woman who'd built a multi-million-dollar company from my father's legacy. Still the person who'd raised Celeste from a grieving college student into a successful lawyer. Still someone with resources, intelligence, and now a very clear understanding of exactly who I was dealing with. I wasn't going to disappear. I wasn't going to accept this. I was going to make them pay. On day 11, I walked back into my life wearing a mask of forgiveness. I'd practiced the performance in my hotel mirror for hours. The grateful smile. The relieved tears. The story about food poisoning that had left me too weak to call anyone back. Nathan, I'm so sorry I worried you, I whispered as he pulled me into his arms in his apartment. The smell of his cologne made my stomach turn, but I held on tight, counting his heartbeats against my cheek. 112 beats per minute. Elevated. Guilty. God, Iris, I thought something terrible had happened to you. Something terrible did happen to me. You happened to me. But I just smiled and kissed his cheek, tasting the lie on his skin. Celeste arrived within an hour, throwing herself at me with tears streaming down her face. I was so scared. You just disappeared. I'm here now, I murmured into her hair, the same hair I'd braided when she was 7. I'm not going anywhere. The irony was delicious. They thought they were comforting me, but I was studying them like specimens under glass. Learning their tells. Nathan touched his neck when he lied. Celeste's left eye twitched when she was nervous. Small details I'd never noticed when I trusted them blindly. I returned to work the next day with a story about severe dehydration and doctor's orders to take things slowly. My assistant fussed over me, bringing herbal tea and rescheduling meetings. If only she knew I was using those cancelled meetings to dig through our computer systems. Nathan had been sloppy. Overconfident. His access to client accounts had left digital fingerprints everywhere. Transfers that coincided with my business trips. Signatures that didn't quite match. Authorization codes used at times when I had documented alibis. But it was Celeste who had been truly brilliant. Her law degree had given her the perfect cover to handle estate planning for our family. She'd filed papers, created accounts, moved money with the kind of legal precision that would have impressed me if she hadn't been using it to destroy me. $2.3 million. That's how much they'd stolen so far, thinking they were just advancing their inheritance. Money that belonged to my clients, funneled through a maze of accounts that all traced back to signatures I'd supposedly made. The beautiful thing was, they had no idea I knew. I played my part perfectly. The loving fiancé helping plan our June wedding. The devoted sister taking Celeste to lunch twice a week, listening to her talk about her pro bono cases while she was actually covering up financial fraud. You're glowing, Nathan said one evening, stroking my hair as we watched TV. I love seeing you happy again. I am happy, I thought. Just not for the reasons you think. Because every day, I was building something magnificent. A case so airtight that when it finally came together, there would be no escape routes, no plea bargains, no family loyalty to hide behind. I started dating Detective Marcus Chen from the NYPD Financial Crimes Unit. Not romantically, not yet, but professionally. He'd responded to an anonymous tip about suspicious activity at my firm, and I was so helpful, so concerned about protecting our clients. You have excellent instincts about these things, he told me after I'd provided him with another carefully selected piece of evidence. It's like you can see patterns others miss. Oh Marcus, if you only knew. The hardest part wasn't gathering evidence or building relationships with law enforcement. It was the waiting. Sitting through romantic dinners with Nathan while he planned our future with my money. Helping Celeste shop for a bridesmaid dress she'd never get to wear. But patience was becoming my superpower. Every fake smile, every loving gesture, every moment of playing the fool was an investment in their destruction. They thought I was weak. Thought love had made me blind and stupid. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. The first victory came 3 months into my performance. I was having lunch with Celeste at our usual spot, a tiny French cafe where she always ordered the salmon and complained about her caseload. Except today, I'd done my homework. How's the Morrison case going? I asked casually, cutting into my salad. She froze for just a heartbeat. Morrison case? The estate planning you mentioned last week? The elderly client with the complex trust? I smiled innocently. You seemed so stressed about it. Her eye twitched. Left eye. Right on schedule. Oh, that Morrison. It's resolved now. There was no Morrison case. I'd made it up to test her, and she'd just confirmed what I already knew, she was lying about everything. The relief that flooded through me was intoxicating. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't imagining things. I was right. That's wonderful, sweetheart. You work so hard. But inside, I was cataloging every micro-expression, every tell, building a psychological profile that would serve me well when the time came. The second victory was even sweeter. Nathan had been working late 3 nights that week, and I knew exactly where he was. But instead of confronting him, I used those evenings to access his laptop. His email was a goldmine. Conversations with Celeste about the timeline. Messages to lawyers about expediting the trust modifications. Even a romantic exchange where he called her Mrs. Rivers and she called him my secret husband. My secret husband. Like our marriage was some delicious conspiracy instead of a betrayal that had shattered another woman's life. I printed everything. Organized it. Added it to my growing file that was becoming thicker than a phone book. Evidence. Testimony. A complete roadmap to their destruction. But the most powerful moment came when I finally met with FBI agent Sarah Martinez. Marcus had introduced us, explaining that financial crimes this complex sometimes required federal intervention. This level of sophistication suggests long-term planning, Agent Martinez said, reviewing the documents I'd discovered in my investigation. Someone with significant legal knowledge orchestrated this. I can't imagine who would do something like this to our clients, I said, my voice shaking with perfectly calibrated emotion. These are people who trusted us with their life savings. She studied me with sharp eyes. Ms. Blackwood, I have to ask, is there anyone close to you who might have had access to this information? The moment hung between us like a loaded gun. This was it. The point of no return. I let my voice break. I don't want to believe it, but my sister is a lawyer. She's been helping with estate planning. And my fiancé has access to all the client accounts. Agent Martinez leaned forward. We'll need to investigate them as potential suspects. Please, I whispered, tears I didn't have to fake streaming down my cheeks. Please be gentle with them. Even if they did this, they're still my family. Walking out of that federal building, I felt like I was floating. The trap was set. The pieces were in motion. Nathan and Celeste had no idea that their perfect crime was about to become their perfect downfall. But that night, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, a cold thought crept in. The woman looking back at me had become someone I barely recognized. Someone who could lie with tears. Someone who could smile while building a case that would destroy the people she once loved. Am I becoming like them? The thought should have stopped me. Should have made me reconsider. Instead, it made me smile. Because unlike them, my lies were in service of justice. My deception had a purpose beyond greed. They had created this version of me. Now they would have to live with the consequences. The trap was set for their wedding reception at the Metropolitan Club. 200 guests. Every major client of our firm. All of our extended family and friends. The perfect audience for the perfect downfall. I'd insisted on planning everything, playing the devoted sister role to perfection. You two deserve to celebrate properly, I'd gushed, booking the most expensive venue, the best photographers, spare no expense for their special day. They thought I was being generous. I was being strategic. The FBI agents were already positioned throughout the room, dressed as waitstaff and guests. Agent Martinez gave me a subtle nod from across the dance floor as Celeste stood to give her speech. Thank you all for being here tonight, Celeste began, radiant in her designer gown. Paid for with stolen money. Family means everything to me, and I'm so grateful to have my amazing sister Iris here to share this moment. She raised her champagne glass toward me. To family loyalty and unconditional love. The irony was so perfect it took my breath away. I stood slowly, my own glass trembling just slightly in my hand. The room quieted, expecting a loving sister's toast. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. I'd like to tell you about the bride and groom. Nathan's face went pale. Celeste's smile flickered. 6 months ago, while planning my own wedding to Nathan, I discovered something interesting. I pulled out my phone, projecting images onto the reception screens. Bank statements. Transfer records. Their secret marriage certificate. Gasps echoed through the room. Nathan and Celeste have been married for 8 months. While he was engaged to me. While she was my maid of honor. Iris, stop, Nathan started toward me. But that's not the best part, I continued, clicking to the next slide. They've also stolen $2.3 million from your investment accounts. Money that was supposed to secure your retirements, your children's educations, your futures. The room erupted. Clients were standing, shouting, demanding answers. Celeste's mask finally slipped. You vindictive bitch. FBI. Nobody move. Agent Martinez's voice cut through the chaos as federal agents appeared from every corner of the room. Guests scattered, screaming, as handcuffs materialized. Nathan tried to run. He made it 3 steps before 2 agents tackled him to the marble floor, his tuxedo tearing at the knees. But I only had eyes for Celeste. My baby sister, who I'd raised and protected and loved more than my own life, standing in her stolen wedding dress with hatred burning in her eyes. How long have you been planning this? I asked quietly, stepping closer as the agents moved toward her. Years, she spat. Do you know what it was like growing up in your shadow? Perfect Iris with her perfect life and her perfect inheritance. You never deserved any of it. You're right, I said softly. I never deserved to be betrayed by the people I loved most. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists with a sound like breaking glass. You won't get away with this, Nathan snarled as they led him past me. We'll fight this. We'll. With what lawyer? I smiled. Celeste is about to be disbarred. And with what money? Everything you stole has been frozen as evidence. As they dragged my sister toward the exit, she turned back one last time. I hate you, she whispered. I know, I replied. That's what makes this so perfect. The ballroom fell silent except for the echo of closing doors and my own heartbeat. 200 witnesses to their downfall. Perfect documentation for the media. Justice served with an audience. I stood alone in the ruins of their reception, surrounded by overturned champagne glasses and scattered rose petals. Finally, it was finished. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Nathan got 15 years in federal prison for wire fraud and embezzlement. The judge called it a profound betrayal of trust that destroyed innocent families' financial security. He was led away in shackles, his expensive suits replaced with orange jumpsuits that matched his new reality. Celeste received 12 years and immediate disbarment. The legal community she'd worked so hard to join turned their backs on her overnight. Her law degree, her reputation, her entire identity, all reduced to nothing by her own greed. But the real punishment was watching everything they'd stolen slip through their fingers like water. Their penthouse apartment, the one they'd furnished with my money, was seized by federal marshals. I drove by one afternoon and watched strangers carry out the furniture piece by piece. The designer couch where they'd planned my destruction. The dining table where they'd toasted their secret marriage. All of it loaded into trucks like evidence of a life that never really existed. Their cars were repossessed. Their bank accounts, frozen. The lavish honeymoon they'd planned to Santorini became a shared prison cell in upstate New York. Every newspaper in the city covered the story. Investment heiress exposes sister's betrayal. The wedding that ended in handcuffs. The photos from their arrest, Celeste in her stolen wedding dress, Nathan face down on marble floor, became front-page headlines. They'd wanted my inheritance. Instead, they became infamous. The legal proceedings dragged on for months, but I testified with a clear conscience and steady voice. I told the truth about their manipulation, their lies, their systematic destruction of trust. The jury deliberated for 47 minutes before delivering guilty verdicts on all counts. I thought betrayal had broken me when I found them in my bed that afternoon 6 months ago. I thought love meant I had to forgive anything, accept anything, sacrifice everything. But betrayal didn't break me. It rebuilt me into someone stronger, smarter, more careful with my heart. Detective Marcus Chen became more than just my contact in the financial crimes unit. He started bringing me coffee during depositions, staying late to help me organize evidence, looking at me like I was brave instead of broken. "You could have just left town," he told me one evening as we finished cataloging the last of Nathan's emails. "Started over somewhere else. Most people would have run." "Most people didn't grow up in my father's house," I replied. He taught me that when someone steals from you, you don't run. You make sure they can never steal from anyone else again. The inheritance I was supposed to receive at 30 came through 6 months early, once all the fraudulent paperwork was untangled. $50 million that was rightfully mine, legally mine, finally mine without shadows or stolen signatures. But money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was waking up every morning without wondering who was lying to me. Without that constant anxiety that I was missing some crucial piece of information. Without having to perform happiness while my heart was breaking in secret. I bought Celeste's apartment building, the one where she'd lived while planning my destruction, and converted it into transitional housing for women escaping financial abuse. Every month, I get thank you letters from women who found safety there. Women who understand what it means to rebuild after betrayal. Nathan's car collection became scholarship funds for underprivileged students. His precious vintage Porsche paid for 3 kids to go to college. Some nights, I still dream about that hotel chapel. About watching them exchange vows in my stolen dress with my stolen ring. But now, when I wake up, I smile instead of cry. Because I learned something they never will: revenge isn't about destruction. It's about making sure justice has the last word. Today marks exactly 1 year since I stood in that hotel chapel, watching my sister marry my fiancé with my money, in my dress, living my stolen life. A year ago, my hands shook with heartbreak. Today, they're steady as I sign the final paperwork for my book deal. The Sister Who Stole Everything will be published next spring, with all profits going to victims of financial fraud. A year ago, I thought love meant blind trust. Today, I'm engaged to Detective Marcus Chen, who proposed with a ring he bought himself and a promise that honesty would be our foundation. No secrets. No stolen moments. No betrayal wrapped in family loyalty. A year ago, I was hiding behind marble pillars, watching my life crumble. Today, I'm standing in the penthouse I bought with my rightful inheritance, looking out of the city that no longer feels dangerous. The same view, but I'm not the same woman. Nathan and Celeste are spending their first Christmas in prison. I'm spending mine surrounded by the women from my shelter program, survivors who understand that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we loved first. I used to think their betrayal was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Now I know it was the best. They thought they were stealing my future. Instead, they gave me a better one. They thought they were destroying me. Instead, they revealed who I really was underneath all that naive trust and desperate need to please. I'm not their victim anymore. I'm not anyone's victim. And sometimes, late at night when the city lights twinkle like fallen stars, I whisper a thank you into the darkness. Thank you for showing me that the only person I really needed to save was myself. The universe has a sense of humor. They wanted everything I had. Now they have exactly what they deserve: nothing. And I have everything I never knew I wanted: peace.